Hello guys, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Now we are from 12th group. We're gonna to explain our material about abstract and concrete poem. And let's go to our explanation. Check it out.
Okay, guys, the first is abstract poem. Abstract poetry is a form of poetry which doesn't necessarily depend upon the depth or meaning of the words. The abstract poetry is more likely to be ambiguous when we are trying to find the meaning of the words. It is something where the words may be vague and cannot be easily picturized. Like for the example is the word love. If we are saying about love, we will talking about what kind of love is it, with whom we delivered this love. A lot of question, a lot of ambiguous and abstract question related to the word love is cannot be interpreted if the context is not really clear. Abstract poetry has an oral taste based on sounds and rhymes. Dan apa yang kita maksud sama oral taste di sini itu sesuatu yang bisa dirasakan sama panca indera. Nah, karena berhubung kita mainnya dengan suara dan rima, artinya kita akan lebih mengedepankan dengan penggunaan indera pendengaran. Like for example, when we are saying such statement like tralalala in a poetry, maybe we cannot feel the music clearly because we read it, but we can like visualize in our mind spontaneously the feel of the music of tralalala.
Okay, I will explain the reason why this poem is categorized as abstract poem. This poem is titled Popular Song, written by Sid Wells Fakir. Okay, let's start from the first reason. The first reason is, like we can see from the title itself is still abstract and it is not clear which popular song is meant. And then the second reason is, in the poem there are also many ambiguous words or difficult to understand words, especially for ordinary people. So they have to think hard or need to find the meaning of the word to understand the overall meaning of the poem. The example is like the red vetiver had satyr. I think ordinary people will confuse what does it mean. Then, but Lily O'Grady, who is Lily O'Grady? Then the deep shade, which deep shade is poem in. Then Pompey's Hammers, Heliogabalus, who is Pompey's Homer, Heliogabalus, then not explained in this poem. Okay. I think that is the reason why this poem is categorized as abstract poem. Thank you.
Let's go to the next is concrete poem. Concrete poem, concrete poetry, or another name is shape poetry or calligram, is kind of poetry whose visual appearance matches the topic of the poem, and the words form shapes which illustrate the poem subject as a picture. So, in this kind of poetry, the writer, if wanna make a concrete poem or concrete poetry, have to illustrate the content of the poetry as the title of the poetry. So we can take an example if the writer want to make a concrete poem with the title Flower. So the writer have to make a shape, the poetry that is illustrate the title. So the title is Flower, and the writer have to illustrate flower in the content of the poetry, and the shape have to like a flower. And then another definition of concrete poem is combining poetic writing and drawing. So in here is clear what is concrete poem. And then next, the example of concrete poem will explained by Ismail Imansyah.
Okay, I will explain the example of the poem titled The Apples by S.C. Rigg. As we can see, the form of the poem is like an apple, just like the title. And then the writer used imagery language in this poem, like stem, red, yellow, and green, to make us can see many colors in the poem. And then the word crunchy to make us hear how if we eat the apple, like crunch, crunch, crunch. And then the word juicy, delicious, yum, and yuck. It makes us can taste the apple. And then there are so many repetition in that poem. So many repetition like apple, yum, juicy, crunchy, red, yellow, green, delicious, yum, and yuck. And then the second example is the swan and shadow. Yeah, as we can see, the form of the poem is like a swan and its shadow on the water. And in this poem implies both happy and sad, because a swan usually represents beautiful things and a shadow represents dark and mysterious thing. We can see the word apple signal will appear soon before its shadow fades. It means expressing how something so small can lead to an even bigger discovery if you pay close enough attention. Then the theme of this poem is change, because the writer is trying to say that beautiful doesn't mean it's good, just like in the first of the poem, like all that glitters isn't gold and the devil wears Prada. Okay, those are the example of the concrete poem. Why it's called concrete poem? Because the form of the poem represents the title of the poem. Thank you.
Yes, guys, that's all our explanation, and thank you very much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.